Vi invito a prendere.
I invite everybody to have a seat so that our works may get started. Thank you.
Vedo che siete.
Okay, I've noticed you don't have any headphones at the beginning, at the entrance, and I'm asking technicians to help because I think that there will be a simultaneous translation into and from Russian and English and Italian. So I would suggest you to. I apologize because I'm asking you to stand up and. And go and take the headphones for the translation.
Buongiorno a tutti.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, and sorry for the slight delay. Let's get started immediately. Giving the floor to the President of ISIAE, Sergio Divina. I thank you especially for coming here, and this is a matter of great satisfaction for us, because I have to say that similar conferences are being organized throughout the world, because 2025 for the United Nations has been declared the International Year of Peace and Trust. And so ISIA, our institute, also decided to, thanks to all the relationships we have with the Asian countries, to accept such a challenge, also because this is a challenge which is going to accompany all other issues and topics to be discussed. This, in turn, will certainly have a profound impact on the economies and the well-being of so many states. So the United Nations has declared 2025 so the International Year of Trust and Peace. But of course, trust is absolutely necessary in order to keep the peace at a global level. And these are exactly the words or the key words: dialogue, trust, peace, and security, which have been here on the in the title of our brochure. And so our institute decided to organize such a conference in this prestigious library. And even for us who are Italians, and we are generally speaking quite knowledgeable when it comes to our monuments and the great heritage assets, we have been very happy to be hosted here, and we thank the general direction or the general management of this library because they accepted to host us here. So our idea, which has to, or the title, which actually refers to the trust and dialogue, believes or is rooted in the idea that dialogue is necessary and trust is absolutely necessary to establish peaceful relationships between countries. So, and security, of course, is necessary, but it requires coordinated efforts by governments, international organizations, and institutions like ours. That's why we have organized this conference. So, on the 18th of February, we had already organized a conference on the importance of the cooperation between Europe and the Gulf countries, in order to avoid that the stability of such an important area as the Middle East might be disrupted. And so it is very important now for us to hear that all the countries of the areas, beginning with Saudi Arabia and Oman and all the Gulf countries, actually were in agreement with us on that. Because the trade war, or the trade war that has been generated by the introduction of trade tariffs by the United States, actually emphasized such a need. And today, however, we have known that these tariffs will be postponed, and so the final outcome of these tariffs will have to be seen. But however, it has these tariffs have had very severe consequences already. And so it is very important to gather all or to put together and to implement all possible diplomatic actions. And then number two, what we have to do, and that's why we want to talk with all the Mediterranean countries up to the Pacific Ocean, to intensify between Italy, European Union, and Asian countries in order to resort to the so many international transport or pipeline routes that have been put into place in the between Europe and Asia. So, and this might help a lot in lowering and reducing the tariffs that might be implemented against all our countries. So we go back to one of the key words, that is to say, let's talk. And so let me now greet His Excellency, the Ambassador of Turkmenistan in Italy, the Honorable Cirielli, Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs in Italy, and the Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs from Turkmenistan. And in the place, instead of Ambassador Faisal Saul, today we will have with us the Vice Ambassador Al-Shibani. I apologize for the pronunciation, says the President of ISAA. And the plenipotentiary minister, Mr. Lai Xiaoyong, who is the vice director of the mission of the embassy of the Chinese Popular Republic in Italy, and then Mr. Fabio Ender, who is a geopolitical ISIA analyst, and Mr. Giulio Alfano from the Lateranense University, and Mr. Gulshat Yusupova, Rector of the Institution of International Relations of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Turkmenistan. And also we have with us the excellencies of the ambassadors of the Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Egypt, Iraq, and Iran. And then let me also greet the representative here of Japan government and a number of distinguished guests who are here representing their respective embassies. And let me now greet the Vice General Secretary of ISIA, who wanted to be here, and also thank Alessandro Palmieri from ISIA as well for the impeccable organization of this conference, and President Morgoni, who President of ISIA, who will draw the conclusions at the end of this very interesting conference. So I wish now you all a very fruitful work today.
Now we give the floor to Ambassador of Turkmenistan, Toili Komekov.
Доброе утро всем участникам.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to greet all participants. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers of this event and also for the support given by ISIA and the president of the Institute, Mr. Morgoni, also the Secretary General, Mr. Palmieri, and the Vice President of Lima. I really appreciate the fact that you have accepted this invitation to participate in this conference. I'd like to thank Vice Minister Cirielli and Deputy Minister of Turkmenistan, His Excellency Hakhmet Gurbanov. Thank you for being here. I also would like to thank all our colleagues, the heads of missions in Rome, and the representatives of diplomatic missions. Thanks to all the scientists, the scholars, and the representatives of religious institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, as it is well known, the year 2025 has been declared the year of peace and trust on the basis of the resolution of the UN General Assembly. And for this reason, we have an opportunity to build a more inclusive, just, and sustainable world. Well, we know that the UN resolution contains the basic principles of the Charter of the United Nations, in particular, the obligation to settle disputes with peaceful means. So the resolution declaring this International Year of Peace and Trust has become a practical embodiment of the philosophy of international relations. Dialogue is a guarantee for peace. Turkmenistan would like to have this year of peace and trust as a real opportunity, a global paradigm shift towards a new approach when it comes to the international setting. Our resolution is a way to invite all states to work together, including all the ideological and practical concepts of the ideas of peace and trust as a way to approach the world order. So the International Year of Peace and Trust, of course, coincides with the 30th anniversary of the universal recognition of permanent neutrality of Turkmenistan, in accordance which was adopted unanimously and which was also confirmed twice in June 2015. Over the past few years, the neutrality of Turkmenistan has shown its compliance with the UN main assets and values. So our neutrality has been considered as heritage of mankind. So this is not just our domestic model for foreign relations, but it is also an effective platform to solve emerging disputes with peaceful means at a negotiating table. Today, my country and Italy promote peaceful means, dialogue, and we really appreciate the support and the attention given to the development of our relationships. We really appreciate the fact that Italy and Turkmenistan, together with other Central Asian countries, are establishing more stronger relationships. So, and this is supported by the Italian government and by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Turkmenistan. So once again, we'd like to thank the Italian government because they have supported the foreign policy of Turkmenistan. And I, once again, would like to thank you all from the bottom of my heart, because we also appreciate the Central Asia, Turkmenistan, Italy format. These are diplomatic relations, political relations. And last year, the meeting between the Ministries of Foreign Affairs was extremely profitable, fruitful, a very good one, and it gave us a new roadmap to strengthen our relations. Also, Minister Tajani has played a key role with his wisdom, his active participation, and also Vice Minister Cirielli. So we would like to thank all our guests, our colleagues who have been working to strengthen our relationships with Turkmenistan, but also with the Central Asia in a general sense. Also, I'd like to thank all His Excellencies for being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, His Excellency Komikov. Now we have the Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Edmundo Cirielli.
Buongiorno.
First of all, good morning, everybody, and thank you so much to our friend, Vice Minister Mr. Gurbanov, and the embassy who invited me here. And in particular, this was also organized by the Italian Institute for Asia, which is an excellency of Italy in terms of support to our diplomatic action. Today we'll have the opportunity to repeat and focus on the importance of the relationship with Turkmenistan and obviously as a door to Central Asia. The presence of my colleague and friend, Vice Minister Gurbanov, is very important for us to repeat once again and to emphasize once again our historical and traditional ties. So we know that the so-called Silk Road and the relationship we've had during the years are something which is here to stay, even in the future. But we should learn from our ancestors how much our peoples share. And so this now has to be turned into action, and the activity of our Prime Minister Meloni and the Minister of Foreign Affairs concerning the connection between China passing through the Caucasus and the Caspian can prove it. And so ever since 2019, we have met very often, and you wait in October the visit of the President of Turkmenistan for a very important archaeological and cultural event, which is extremely important for Italy. And let me also remind you of two important visits of Minister Vittorio Tajani, or Vice Minister Vittorio Tajani, with Vice Minister Miredov in Rome, and the bilateral encounters or meetings during the Italy Central Asia conference. And I have been to Turkmenistan some time ago, and I was really welcomed very friendly as a friend, and not only as a colleague of another country. And I, in particular, Vice Minister Gurbanov received me, and I was even honored to be received by Mr. Meredov for a quite a long time, and we had an opportunity to exchange our mutual ideas about also this conference. So let me go back to the topic, the theme that Italy in the last few years has tried to sustain in the last few years in the Caucasus area and in China. We are absolutely convinced that this large, this large geographic area is very important, and this isn't only important due to the gigantic mineral resources or hydrocarbons deposits, which certainly are a great resource for the economic future of these countries and their partners, but also from a diplomatic, cultural viewpoint, and also because of the geographic position, which has in the centuries assigned them the role of a door between the East and the West. And so, let me remind you that Italy is the third trade partner of the whole Central Asia after China and Russia. And because, these relationships show that Italy, although being geographically speaking a bit far away, has from the immaterial viewpoint, we are very close one to the other. And so and through the Caucasus area, we are also quite close, or have become quite particularly close recently to China, and in terms of trade or economic interests, but also our will to act in the interest of peace and dialogue. And so we have noticed with great pleasure that this activism of Italy towards Turkmenistan and Central Asia countries has also stimulated probably the initiatives of the European Union. In the European Union, in Ashgabat in March, has had a very important meeting, and in Samarkand with von der Leyen was the first summit of European Union with Central Asia. So our idea of a strategic partnership with this geographic area has been repeated and restated and confirmed, and China and Europe are the first trade partner in terms of investment in this very important area for the whole planet. And we have an important strategy to connect better or more this through the global gateway, Asia and Europe, but it's also not only with these areas, which I have mentioned, but the whole of Asia. And I wish to also remind us all that the European Union has entrusted Italy with the co-chairmanship of a very important conference on water resources, because the EU has recognized that this geographic area, which is double as large as much than the whole of Europe in terms of area, or has entrusted Italy with this role, which has always actually been very active in diplomatic terms. And so we had the honor to preside together with the envy of the European Union, a very important event. And I also took the opportunity to launch, as a vice minister who is responsible for cooperation, a new impetus to the old idea of requalification, regeneration of the basin of the Aral Lake. And so this is the internal, used to be the internal lake, the largest landlocked lake of the planet, and the 5 countries neighboring it are doing a lot, are very committed, and also international partners are playing a role. But Italy and Europe actually want to do the same, and thanks to our public engineering company, Soggesit, that actually cooperates with the Ministry of Environment, but all other ministries as well. Considerable investment and a big project to carry out important projects open to all foreign investors, including EU, because EU with the Global Gateway, of course, should play a very important, a major role in this, but also with Russia and China in the framework of this dialogue and peace relationships. And then we have already heard about the crisis due to the Russian invasion to China.
Portare alla ragione.
And so we are very hopeful that a solution which is of mutual satisfaction may be found, but also preserving the territorial integrity of Ukraine, because this is a principle which is enshrined in UN principles, and so we all stand for it. And we also have the Middle East crisis, the current Middle East crisis, which probably is also due to the negation or the fact that the Palestine rights to have a state have been so far denied, and even this was also reported at the Helsinki conferences. But it is certainly due also and accelerated by the horrible and bloody terror attack that was suffered by Israel. And this has caused a war which we hoped that might be stopped, but unfortunately it looks like that beyond all legal reasons. We all know that the worst and most severe mistakes that can be carried out is to take civilian hostages, to kidnap civilian hostages to negotiate peace. This is criminal act which is not worth of a nation. So we know that there is also a war law, we might say. The war is a terrible thing. We all know this. We don't want to ignore it, but the authorities and the powers and the countries, the states, should also warranty in during a warfare the compliance with the Geneva Conventions and the war rules, so to say. And Italy, therefore, remains committed because everybody knows that we are close friends to the people in Palestine, and but Israel as well, and also in the Arab countries. And so we have invested a lot in terms of humanitarian aid in Gaza, and we know that also Turkmenistan also is particularly active as a moderator and so an actor of moderation and democracy, and we really appreciate it very much. But let's have a look at what happens in Lebanon, in Syria, and we think that the Western countries should act in a more diplomatic modality. And I'm including here our European Union partners or United Nations partners. Certainly, we all have made mistakes, but we should really try in all possible ways to guarantee peace and prosperity, not only to those peoples, but also to all other peoples. And a lot has been done, is being done by the Italian diplomacy and the diplomacy of other countries for Lebanon and Syria. And so we have to try and find a system or a general environment of trust and dialogue which may be conducive to peace. Now let's talk more specifically about Turkmenistan. And we have appreciated so much this initiative of permanent neutrality. We voted for it, and we also were sponsors of it, and we have we know that Turkmenistan is a nation who has old traditions. It's a proud and a strong people, and in the past, people of warriors. But I think now the peaceful model has been chosen, and we appreciate it a lot. Everybody knows that both Italy and Turkmenistan are in favor of peace and dialogue. We want to cooperate with our countries, with our partners, and to respect other countries' sovereignty. We do not interfere with the events of other countries, but everything we say is said in the full respect of cultural agendas. And so we don't want to, play the role of the good and the bad guy here. We are not interested in this. Our government thinks this would be not only useless, but actually damaging, and for really achieving a global improvement of the situation. And so it is, especially through the trade relations and the prosperity that we may achieve a better life for all the peoples on the planet. And so, and each people should choose and have the decision, the power to decide its own future. First of all, and I am speaking on behalf of European Union, but for everybody else, I would dare say, when there are economic or trade tensions, or whatever tensions, but especially economic tensions, we have the duty to react diplomatically. And so, unless you have really the aim to create also diplomatic tensions. So if one state attacks another state, you are either dumb because you don't know where you want to get, but also might cause severe damages and to diplomacy. And so, although recognizing the right of the U.S. government to try and achieve the best for the American people, tariffs, of course, might be have been an issue in the past. But Italy before this crisis only applied 10% of tariffs to U.S. cars, and the Americans only 2%. So who was the bad guy? So Italy, who had 10% of tariffs, or the States? I think that the tariffs are merely a tool for trade policy, but Italy doesn't share such a view, because we know that tariffs might even be applied through customs barriers or other rules. So you might not apply a tariff on a specific product, but then complicating and making the customs rules and procedures heavier, they might achieve the same goal. And so let me mention someone whose name I don't want to mention used for some time to block the perishable goods for 3 days in harbors. But this is a sort of tariff, and they are our allies today, and they are the first ones to criticize the United States for their trade policy. So we shouldn't be moralistic, because I think that diplomacy should be resorted to at all in all possible occasions. And I think that President Meloni is trying to lower the tones, because the states have posed a trade issue on the table, and I think that it would be necessary and right to sit around the table and discuss, and then an agreement may be decided, shared tariffs may be established, and then there might even in a second stage apply heavier tariffs. But this is not a good reason to actually offend the other countries in any possible way. And I'm talking and I'm saying this especially to our European partners, because I have heard recently really offensive words from some European leaders towards the United States. So I think that the Western countries should first understand what they want to do, because otherwise we do not inspire a sense of solidarity with other partners. And I guess that the rest of the world also is looking at us. So it's not clear if we really want to achieve an objective in a trade or economic negotiations. You don't use offensive words, but you sit around the table. That's it. And so I think that, and I hope that Italian diplomacy will actually achieve the goal of getting the world more peaceful and probably even more free of barriers and tariffs. But even the diplomatic or geopolitical analysts should help in this, because ordinary people actually trust us, and so the commitment should be in the favor of the people who are less powerful, and not meant towards only the very powerful people. So, and I apologize. So that's why I came here today, and I appreciate so much the commitment what Turkmenistan has done, because we might have been talking about economy, connectivity, hydrocarbons, but instead our friends from Turkmenistan decided to talk with us with peace, neutrality, and great values. That's why I'm so happy to be friends with our Turkmenistan friends. Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you, MP Cirielli. Now we give the floor to the Deputy Minister of Turkmenistan, Honorable Hakhmet Gurbanov, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Turkmenistan.
Доброе утро, уважаемые участники заседания.
Good morning, kind participants. Mr. Cirielli, thank you for your warm words that you have addressed to my country and to me personally. I'd like to express my gratitude for organizing this conference to Mr. Palmieri, Mr. Divina. It's so good for me to be here in this historic place in which you can feel the knowledge, information, know-how, and this is a testament to the Italian culture that gives an important meaning to its traditions. Thank you very much for organizing this event in this very place. It has been interesting to listen to the previous speakers who have highlighted the significant aspects of today's agenda. And the previous speakers also talked in a very specific way about current problems in the world. And my friend, Mr. Cirielli, you gave an important overview of your foreign policy, and you highlighted the key points for the implementation of your foreign policy. And you have correctly said that by choosing this topic, we have wanted to dwell on peace and dialogue, a very current theme today. If I may, I'd like to give my speech starting from the main aspects of our foreign policy. As it is well known, concepts such as dialogue, trust, and security in the world are current and meaningful concepts in today's world, and the international community needs these concepts. We are experiencing much turmoil politically in the world, and this is why it is important to look for understanding, mutual understanding. That's why concepts such as dialogue and trust are very relevant today in a world of global challenges, international security issues, economic problems. So against this background, Turkmenistan has always expressed itself in favor of peaceful approaches. Last year, Turkmenistan proposed to proclaim 2025 as the International Year of Trust and Peace, and this was supported unanimously by the UN General Assembly. So this initiative aims at putting together the efforts of the international community to create a constructive climate to tackle the most urgent issues at interstate level and to strengthen dialogue of culture that is based on respect. To this regard, in Turkmenistan, large-scale events will be organized in Turkmenistan also because of its 30th anniversary of international neutrality. And the 12th of December 2025 in Ashgabat, we will have many leaders of governments and states to celebrate such an event. Well, the relationship with Europe is a priority relationship. In fact, the 21st of March 2025, we had a meeting with the EU heads, and also we are interested in participating in the Global Gateway Initiative. A summit was organized in April, the 3rd and the 4th of April, and all the parties talked about a very profitable cooperation idea. And I'm sure that the cooperation of Turkmenistan and with Italy and with other European countries has very good prospects. Also, Turkmenistan is committed to developing, under UN support, the strategy of global peace and collaboration. Turkmenistan attaches great importance to neutrality when it comes to settling disputes, and to this effect, I would like to highlight the growing importance and the effective role played by neutrality. A few years ago, there was a group of Friends of Neutrality which was established. Today, we have more than 30 countries that have joined this initiative. And also, the Day of Neutrality in Turkmenistan has been set up, and the UN General Assembly took the third resolution on this permanent status of neutrality of Turkmenistan, co-sponsored by 67 member states, included Italy. This was a strong statement of support on the part of the international community to the concept of neutrality as a way to get to mutual understanding and peace and security. So this is a way to testify to the importance of peace and trust and neutrality. So the resolution also highlights the importance of preventative diplomacy. For years, Turkmenistan has supported the importance of preventative measures, such as monitoring for conflict prevention. In Ashgabat, the Center for Preventative Diplomacy in Central Asia has been established, and the work of this body has proved effective. So the concept of neutrality and preventive diplomacy play a major role when it comes to creating sustainable security. When it comes to bilateral partnership, we take stock with satisfaction of the fact that Italian-Turkmeni relations are well developed both at bilateral and multilateral levels. And as Mr. Cirielli said, I'd like to recall the very successful visit that the President made, a visit that gave strong momentum to our joint work. We're also trying to establish new contacts with new figures at different levels. Also, we'd like to mention the visit of Mr. Cirielli in Turkmenistan this year. Last year, our Minister of Foreign Affairs went to Italy twice for bilateral meetings and also to participate in the format Italy and Central Asia. When it comes to economic cooperation, according to 2024 statistics, Italy has become the largest European trade partner for Turkmenistan. According to our statistics, in 2024, trade exceeded 1.6 billion euros. We are actively cooperating in agriculture, transport, textile industry, and also relationships between the private companies, enterprises of the two countries have developed. Since Turkmenistan has an open door policy, we are ready for a mutual exchange. We offer good prospects for interaction with Italian partners. That's why we would like to invite Italian enterprises to actively participate in larger scale initiatives such as the Global Transport Atlas and the Circular Economy. Dear participants, it is also our intention to cooperate in the areas of culture and science. In Turkmenistan, we organize many events, culinary events, cultural events. We also teach Italian in Turkmen schools, and we are very grateful to Italy for giving us so many teachers of the Italian language. I also would like to thank the University of Perugia and would like to highlight the great interest of our citizens when it comes to Italian history. For more than 3 decades, we have worked in the archaeological field. In Turkmenistan, there are Italian scholars from the Mediterranean Research Association, and their work gives a great contribution for the relationship between our countries. As it is well known, the relationship between Italy and Turkmenistan was established more than 2,000 years ago, when between the Parthic Empire and the Roman Empire, who had dealings in Central Asia. Since October 2025 until May 2026, the great exhibition of ancient Marciana in the Capitol Museums of Rome will be on. I'm convinced that this exhibition in this beautiful capital city will be a great event. Another area of cultural exchange is the knowledge of great personalities of our peoples. In Ashgabat, we opened a big park, a Turkmen poet, and also a monument to Dante Alighieri. Another area of bilateral cooperation is the academic field. In fact, we express a great interest for the fruitful cooperation with the ISIA Institute, and we are very grateful to you for organizing this event. I'd like to invite you to visit our country. We might organize some meetings, and we might sign a memorandum of cooperation. By way of conclusion, I'd like once again to express my gratitude to Italy for meeting, for getting together and discussing very crucial topics of international significance. I appreciate and I would like to thank my friend, Mr. Cirielli, who in his talk has talked about the urgency of constructive dialogue, of trust that is being threatened by external factors at present. So 2025 was declared the year of peace and trust by our leader of the nation, Berdi Mohamedou, who has promised a year as a guarantee for peace and trust. And as you have highlighted, without dialogue, without conversation, without getting together, no progress is possible. That's why our principles coincide. And I think that thanks to mutual efforts and this constructive approach, we'll be able to make a contribution to strengthening peace and trust on our planet. So once again, I'd like to express my gratitude to the Italian party, to our Embassy of Turkmenistan in Italy. Thank you very much for this opportunity of exchanging views with you.
Thank you so much, His Excellency Gurbanov. I know that the Vice Minister, unfortunately, has a previous commitment, so he won't be able to attend the rest of our conference.
Saluto nel frattempo l'ambasciatore.
Let me greet Ambassador Asuba. Now let me greet here and welcome here the ambassador of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to Italy. So His Excellency will speak in Arabic, and I will be translating. I will read in Italian his.
معهد ISIA على الدعوة الكريمة وتخصيص هذه المناقشة المفتوحة بمناسبة إعلان الأمم المتحدة للعام 2025 عاما للسلام والثقة والأمن والتأكيد على أهمية حل النزاعات عبر الحوار والدبلوماسية بين الدول. أتحدث إليكم بصفة أن بلدي المملكة العربية السعودية أحد الأعضاء المؤسسين لمنظمة التعاون الإسلامي، كما أن الدول الأعضاء في المنظمة المشار إليها من الدول المؤسسة لمنظمة الأمم المتحدة ومن الموقعين على ميثاقها. أصحاب المعالي والسعادة والحضور، لقد حرصت المملكة العربية السعودية دوما على المشاركة في كل جهد ومسعى من شأنه أن يسهم في حفظ الأمن والسلم الدوليين، ومنذ توحيدها عملت وما زالت تعمل على أن السلم والسلام هو الحل الأمثل لنزع فتيل الحروب بين الدول، كما ساهمت وشاركت مع أصدقائها الدوليين في إنهاء الكثير من الصراعات، واستضافت قمم وحوارات عالمية للسلام كان آخرها المحادثات البناءة حول الأزمة الأوكرانية، حيث استضافت هذه المحادثات انطلاقا من إيمانها بأهمية الالتزام بالقوانين والأعراف الدولية، وبأن الحوار هو الوسيلة الأنجح لحل النزاعات وتقريب وجهات النظر، مما يساهم في ترسيخ الأمن والاستقرار الدوليين. ومن ضمن مساعي المملكة لحل هذه الأزمة بفضل علاقاتها المتوازنة مع مختلف الأطراف وضمن جهودها لتعزيز الأمن والسلام العالمي. إن من أهم أهداف رؤية المملكة 2030 هي التنمية المستدامة، ليس في الداخل فحسب، وإنما تسعى أن يتحقق ذلك في محيطها الإقليمي والدولي، وذلك إيمانا منها أن شعوب العالم أجمع تستحق العيش في سلام وأمن، وفي منطقة عانت وما زالت تعاني من الحروب وعدم الاستقرار. أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، إن مما يبعث على الألم أن تأتي مناقشتنا حول هذا الموضوع في وقت يغيب فيه الأمن والسلم عن كثير من بقاع الأرض في الشرق الأوسط وفي أفريقيا وأوروبا وآسيا. كما أود أن أذكر الجميع بأن مصطلح السلام ارتبط تاريخيا بالقضية الفلسطينية التي ما زال أطفالها ونساؤها يعانون من ظروف إنسانية صعبة ومن مستقبل مجهول في ظل الاعتداءات الإسرائيلية المتكررة، ويتطلعون أن تعمل أسرة المجتمع الدولي على اتخاذ خطوات فعلية لحل الدولتين من شأنه أن يساهم في تأسيس السلام المستدام. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Thank you.
Grazie Eccellenza. Ora
Thank you so much. Now I will be translating the speech in Italian, and so it will be translated into English. His Excellency Hernando Gioriele, Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Italian Republic, and His Excellency Ahmet Gurbanov, and distinguished guests, be the peace be with you. First of all, let me express my appreciation and thanks to the Vice Deputy Ambassador of Turkmenistan and the President of the Italian Institute for Asia for this kind invitation, for having organized this open debate on the occasion of the declaration by the UN of 2025 as the International Year of Trust and Dialogue and Security, and the importance of the dialogue for the resolution of conflicts. I am here representing the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which is one of the founding members of the Group for the Islamic Cooperation, whose members are amongst the founders of the United Nations Organization and signatories to it. So, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has always showed showed a very strong commitment and participation when it came to carry out initiatives aiming at peace and international security. Since its foundation, the kingdom has been very active and still is very active in promoting peace. And it contributed to and participated together with its international partners to the solution of several conflicts and has hosted several peace dialogue, and recently also the ones concerning Ukraine. And these dialogues have been organized and decided in the firm conviction that dialogue is absolutely necessary to resolve international conflicts and contribute to the strengthening of security and stability at an international level. All this is consistent with the commitment of the kingdom in the solution of the crisis, in line with the promotion of peace and security on a global level of the kingdom. One of the objectives of the mission for 2030 of the kingdom is to continue act in this way, both nationally and internationally, because we are convinced that all peoples in the world deserve to live in peace and security. But unfortunately, there are several peoples who still live in a situation of conflicts and instability. So this team actually is particularly important at a time when many planet areas from Asia to Africa and to the rest of the world live without peace. And the peace process is particularly important in Palestine, whose women and men and children live under dire conditions. And they wait anxiously for the international community to act in a decisive way to contribute to a solution of the two states, which may contribute to a sustainable peace. May the peace be with you. And signed, Ambassador of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to Italy. Thank you.
Diamo ora la parola al Ministro
Now we turn the floor to the plenipotentiary minister, vice minister of the Chinese Popular Republic.
Egregio Vice Ministro Kurbanov, gentile Ambasciatore Komekov, gentile Presidente Morgoni, Vicepresidente Divina, Segretario Generale.
Thank you very much, dear President Divino, dear President Divina, Excellencies, friends. First of all, I'd like to welcome Vice Deputy Minister Kurbanov in Italy. Deputy Minister Kurbanov is a dear friend of China. This January, our Deputy Minister made a visit in Turkmenistan to chair together with the Deputy Minister Kurbanov political consultation between China and Turkmenistan. I also recall that last year, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Turkmenistan visited China and met our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Wang Li. So we have a long history and excellent cooperation between China and Turkmenistan. It's a great pleasure for me to take the floor here in this important conference on dialogue, trust, peace, and security in the world. First of all, I'd like to express my deep appreciation to the Embassy of Turkmenistan and the Italian Institute for Asia for organizing this important event. This year, we have the celebration of the 80th anniversary of the foundation of the United States. Yet, mankind is a new historic watershed. Geopolitical crises have been ongoing for a long period of time. We have many global challenges. Factors of instability and uncertainty have multiplied. Against this backdrop, these are the responses of China. First of all, we have to jointly protect peace and security. China remains strongly committed to pursuing peaceful development and promoting the convergence of common interests with all partners, with the view of creating a model based on mutual stability, balanced development. President Xi Jinping launched an initiative for global security, promoting the principle the respect of sovereign integrity and territoriality, reaffirming the need to protect the legitimate needs of security through dialogue and cooperation. So based on these principles, China has made concrete efforts to promote peace from the reconciliation between Saudi Arabia and Iran and mediation actions in contexts of crisis in Ukraine and in the Gaza Strip. The Chinese positions have been increasingly supported by a number of countries. We believe that Gaza and the West Bank are part and parcel of the state of the Palestinian people. The principle of Palestine governed by Palestinians is prerequisite for the management of Gaza in the post-war management. Supporting a two-state solution means promoting a comprehensive and long-lasting solution of the Palestinian issue, with the only aim of having stable and long-lasting peace in the Middle East. As regards the war in Ukraine, which has reached its fourth age, it was an avoidable drama. We supported since the beginning a political approach promoting dialogue and detente, and we will continue to support all efforts in favor of peace. We would like to cooperate with all countries, in particular with those of Central Asia and in the Global South, to have an objective and rational voice which can put together a consensus and stop conflicts and pave the way for peace. Also, it is fundamental to promote international justice and common development. China benefits from a multilateral approach, and we are committed to protecting the integrity of the UN, the authority of the UN, to promote true multilateralism, to create a more equitable system of global governance, which is more inclusive. We also promote economics based on sharing profits and benefits. The use of unilateralism with the approach of strength is something that leads nowhere but just to a lawless jungle. President Xi Jinping promoted an initiative for global development which puts development at the center of the international agenda. He promotes sustainable development goals of the UN for 2030, increasing autonomous development of developing countries. The goal is to make economic transition more balanced and really shared with all the citizens of the world.
Ritiene che la globalizzazione abbia
China believes that cooperation is closely linked to the economic interests of all countries. we are not in favor of a small courtyard, high wall approach, because this is damaging for those promoting these policies and for the global economy as a whole. So the use of tariffs is anachronistic deviation from historic trends. That would be pie in the sky. It's impossible to promote one's interests to the detriment of others' legitimate interests. These actions would seriously jeopardize international trade. China will continue to promote an open policy, trying to cooperate with all parties to protect a multilateral system, trade based on rules, for an open and non-discriminatory system. Third, it is very important to promote dialogue between civilizations. And with the Global Civilization Initiative, President Xi Jinping promotes knowledge and dialogue between peoples, promoting dialogue between different cultures in order to favor a peaceful and harmonious coexistence between peoples. During his visit in China, the Italian President of the Republic, Mr. Mattarella, gave a speech at the University of Beijing, during which President Mattarella highlighted the fact that getting together and a mutual understanding between civilizations is a prerequisite for a peaceful development of the world. We have to make the most of diversities, of dialogue, to contribute to the progress of civilizations. Ladies and gentlemen, we have two important anniversaries: the 50th anniversaries of diplomatic relations between China and the EU, and the 55th anniversary between China and Italy. Asia and Europe are two key forces, two pillars for peace and economy, two important civilizations. So China is the largest developing country, and the European Union is the largest group of developed countries in a world that is characterized by deep changes and turmoil. So what is China doing? What is Asia doing? What is Europe doing? In which areas are they cooperating? What is that they reject? Well, all these questions are key. We are ready to work together based on mutual respect and advantage to overcome differences through dialogue, to prevent conflicts through cooperation, thus contributing to the construction of a world of peace, equity, and harmony. Thank you very much.
Grazie, Eccellenza Li.
Thank you so much, His Excellency. Now we turn the floor to the ISIA geopolitical analyst, Dr. Fabio Indeo. Good morning, everybody. For me, it is a great honor to speak after the prestigious speeches that have been presented so far. So I welcome you all, and in particular the representative of Turkmenistan. So my role today will be to try and make the principle of neutrality, permanent neutrality, which is enshrined in Turkmenistan constitution, and how this factor has really shaped the politics or the foreign policy in particular of this country on the basis of the non-use of strengths, that is to say, not to resort to the strengths for the resolution of conflicts. When in 1995 the UN General Assembly has recognized the principle, actually this might sound as different choice from the choices and the decision of the other Asian ex-former Soviet Union republics. Because the main objective of the neutrality was to strengthen a national identity, the political independence and sovereignty. And so the situation of later instability at the border with Afghanistan and also the Tajik war, the civil war, actually, according to the Article 6 of the Constitution, according to Turkmenistan, should be resolved through the refusal of using the strengths, and so the non-alignment principle and the non-interference with the internal affairs of domestic affairs of other countries, and also the need to become a part of. So, in concrete, what were the actions of Turkmenistan? First of all, it acted as a mediator, a very important role in the Tajik civil war, and supported all the UN resolutions on Afghanistan, and therefore supporting the emergencies in terms of humanitarian aid flows and the support for the population on the occasion of this regional crisis, and then the opening of a center, a regional center for preventive diplomacy in Ashgabat. And in addition to the fact that the diplomatic action of Turkmenistan has recently favored the cooperation environment and the good relations with all regional countries and international actors. And in particular, there is a necessity to open this partnership and dialogue with all the neighboring countries, also through on the western side of Turkmenistan, so the border to Afghanistan. And we know that a very intense energy cooperation with this country actually has been developed. And so this policy has been very fruitful. So after 30 years from the adoption of the declaration by the UN of this year, coinciding with the year of prosperity and peace, so Turkmenistan has developed very good relationships with all the surrounding actors and external actors. In particular, the representative of China has just spoken, and so there was a good dialogue has been developed with China, Russia, the European Union, and multilateral that was extremely fruitful from different viewpoints. But the theme on which I would like to draw your attention was the farsightedness of Turkmenistan, and even though it's not a part of the principle of foreign policy, but when it came to Afghanistan, in considering that Afghanistan shouldn't only be considered as a threat, but also as a country having an opportunity of integration, economic cooperation, not only on the basis of national strategic interests of trade and energy, but as a factor that might be actually downgrading all the element of instability that then might reflect onto the surrounding nations. So even before 2021, Turkmenistan succeeded in establishing a very fruitful dialogue with the Afghanistan authorities, and this is now bearing fruits. And so before passing to the next slide, so I want to show, I want to mention the free trade agreement that has been recently established with Uzbekistan and the electricity exports to Tajikistan. And so we may say that the position, not only the geographic position of Turkmenistan, but not only in terms of the very rich hydrocarbon resources, but I wish to remind you also of hydrogen. Should hydrogen become an optional energy source, so to as an alternative alternative to hydrocarbons. And since the Turkmenistan is positioned in the southern belt, will allow it to produce green hydrogen, and in the middle term, or even by exporting gas, even the blue hydrogen may be developed. And so making it possible to have an entirely new global energy scenario. So here I have listed a number of major projects in which Turkmenistan is a very important actor for the Lapis-Lazuli corridor between Afghanistan and Tajikistan, and the link with the BTK, and then Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan railway corridor, and then the highway at Ashgabat, Turkmenabat, and then the TAPI gas pipeline. So with an open dialogue and a cooperation based on mutual trust, which is the very basis of the neutrality principle, which characterize the Turkmenistan politics. And these are the various corridors, including the Trans-Caspian one, which will connect Turkmenistan with all surrounding countries as well, so, with other countries. So in terms of diversification, in terms of greater integration at a regional level, in terms political and economic, this means that even the Taliban have committed to strengthen the security conditions to maintain the stability of these connectivity corridors. So the participation to the middle corridor or the theater shows the importance of the harbor of Turkmenabishi that has been recently renewed, 17 million of tons per year of capacity. So why is this important? Because if combined with the Kazakh ports of Kurik-Kazau and the Baku port, this might be a fundamental connection to EU. So acting as a bridge, and playing the role of bridging that I mentioned before. So there would be a new regional geographic hub and leading to Italy. So Italy, with the agreement signed in 2024, therefore the bilateral agreement between the Turkmenbashi harbor and the Naples harbor and the visit of the Turkmenistan authorities to Italy. So it underlined the importance of such route. And not only that, but also there was the important result of establishing a very fruitful dialogue with Italy. So at the bilateral level, and we know that the president of Turkmenistan will pay a visit to Italy, if I'm not mistaken, in October 2025, but also the so-called 5+1 format that will allow all the countries to actually meet in order to tackle the concerns and the crises that might affect all these regions. So in conclusion, Turkmenistan is a key actor to improve the cooperation in the region on the basis of the security and the non-use of strengths, and as shown by the non-adherence to military pacts, and then so this and also with the cooperation with Russia and China, passing through the mentions to the countries that I haven't mentioned, that is to say the Gulf countries. So this decision was actually successful, and so has legitimized furtherly the importance of Turkmenistan in terms of geographic position and richness of internal raw materials, and this is an enormous potential that this nation, I'm sure, will deploy at a national, but especially at an international level. Thank you. In the next few years, of course.
Fabio.
Thank you, Fabio. Now we have a slight change in the program. Professor Alfano and Professor Yusupova could not come, but they left their document with us that we will circulate by email. So I will give the floor to President Morgoni for our conclusions. Thank you, Domenico. Good morning to everybody. First of all, I'd like to extend my greetings to all the distinguished participants and Your Excellencies, and once again, welcome to the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Turkmenistan, Mr. Honorable Kurbanov. So it's a great opportunity. I'd like to thank Turkmenistan, in particular the ambassador, for having organized with us, having wanted to organize with us this event. We also appreciated the presence of the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs from Italy, Honorable Cirielli. A few words I'd like to spend on Turkmenistan, because this country has been together with us, co-organizer, a country of old civilization which has been an important hub, a water turning point between Asia and Europe. We've had quite recent diplomatic relationship. In fact, the first mission 15 years ago was led by Ambassador Serpi, as our friend Mr. Marocci might recall, because he participated in that mission. However, as you can understand also from the debate and the different presentations, we have very positive and promising relations. And of course, ISIA wants to work to make the most for Italy to be considered by Turkmenistan as a target country for trade and tourism, and also because we want Italians to discover more and more the cotton and silk road, also thanks to Turkmenistan. In addition to that, important relationships were already established. For instance, the archaeological missions made by the paleontologist from the University of Ashgabat with the University of Bologna more than 20 years ago. So archaeological work has been going on for 2 decades. So we want to continue our relationship based on trust, but also friendship for future relationships that could reap mutual benefits. Of course, the topic of our conference, dialogue, trust, peace, security, you might saying it's a very broad title, of course. Perhaps we do not have the strength that it is needed for such a broad topic. But when no bodies in the world, no organization in the world appear to be able to manage new rules for peaceful coexistence, we believe that no public body can shy from making a commitment, doing something. And in this sense, I think it is very appropriate to mention John Donne. Don't ask who's the bell is chiming. I think it is chiming for you. And I think this is the message to us. We are all involved. We are all called to do something. Of course, our event was not supposed to provide solutions, but we wanted to start some analysis to provide for some food for thought for a new culture based on these principles. And I think that this initiative has been successful because the speakers gave important hints, important views, starting from the ambassador of Turkmenistan with because he has underlined how important it is to start working together, and also the importance of the declaration of neutrality, which has then been mentioned by other speakers, by Vice Minister Gurbanov, and Deputy Minister Cirielli also highlighted and described how important the Central Asia area is, and also he has sketched a very detailed foreign policy sketch with a mention to climate change and the role that can be played by Italy vis-à-vis Central Asian countries. Deputy Minister Gurbanov rightly underlined the initiative of his country to propose the International Year of Trust and Peace, which was then well received by international bodies, but also the 30th anniversary of the Declaration of Neutrality, as well as an assessment of the concept of preventative diplomacy, and therefore the need to take all the useful tools to resume constructive dialogue between countries. We also appreciated the words spent by the ambassador of Saudi Arabia, the commitment of Saudi Arabia's on open international crisis, the crisis in Ukraine, the drama in Palestine, so the need to get to the recognition of the mutual right to existence of two peoples and two states in that area. The representative of the Chinese People's Republic, whom I also appreciated yesterday on another occasion. I listened to his words also yesterday, and he has highlighted a very important anniversary, the 80th anniversary of the United Nations. And I'd like to go back to that later. So the need for all of us to work together to create an open international forum, which is based also on the respect of others. And our analyst, Fabio Indeo, has shed some light on Turkmenistan and also the prospects for future collaboration between our countries and also between the European Union and this area. So our conference started in a way from the declaration of the International Year of Peace and Trust by the UN. Of course, if we look at the first months of the year, we are not very comforted when it comes to a way to celebrate this anniversary in the right way, even because 80 years after the setting up of the UN, we have to ask ourselves if that birth, just like that of many other international organizations, such as the International Monetary Fund or the World Trade Organization, that is those bodies that were set up after the Second World War to avoid other wars. But after 80 years on, we can ask ourselves, what about those ideals? Because these bodies have had their role diminished to some extent, and yet we need them to work. We even have a greater need for these international bodies than we had in the past. Now that we are faced with an alarming increase of wars, trade wars, climate change, which was mentioned by Deputy Minister Cirielli, with its consequences of natural disasters. And I'd like also to mention the topic that is affecting Central Asia, the melting of glaciers, and this has impacts on farming activities, and it might also create additional problems which are not necessarily linked to weather, health scares, health emergencies. We had, unfortunately, a serious pandemic, migration, technological processes in which AI is a global phenomenon. So these are all planetary level events and phenomena. And of course, just global bodies might be able to tackle these global challenges. And at any rate, we also have to highlight that interconnection is part of our daily lives. And I'm not just talking of economics or economy. It seems very difficult to do without notions such as fair trade, international cooperation, free trade. During these days, it has been highlighted that trade wars have no winners, and they are often the omen of more catastrophic situations. But and we cannot stop the movement of goods, of assets, of intangible assets. So it is quite paradoxical if we think that in a world of this type, conflicts are teeming. I don't think protectionist policies can revert this trend, because this is well established. The trend is well established. Perhaps we should ask ourselves how we could govern global progresses considering the moral and technological advances, because isolationism policies cannot govern the current world. And also, this is not just an economic policy. It expresses a political view. It's a sort of unilateralism replacing multilateralism, the law of the strongest. But if you don't give legitimacy to all the parties, you cannot have a just system of international relations. By way of conclusion, we also have to deal with interreligious dialogue. We have to prevent fundamentalism and intolerance. And we might want to recall the hard work of Pope Francis, because religious dialogue is also intercultural dialogue. It has to do with human rights, the rights of life, the rights of people. Sometimes we forget that dialogue is carried out between different people, but we need to find or to have an open, permeable outlook. So we might forget that relations are not just about economic relations, but they have to do with the human and social aspects to build living together, coexistence with solidarity. So I also would like to mention a best practice which was mentioned, a best practice that is very dear to us and for which we can be a bit upbeat. 4 days ago in Samarkand, the first meeting was held between European Union and Central Asia countries. And during that summit, we might want to highlight words that were uttered by the Uzbek president. Central Asia is ready for a new future in which Europe will play a role of partner. And there are two important aspects again, relationships of trust and good neighborhood between different Central Asian countries, because they did have some conflicts, some difficulties in the past, but now they have a very open dialogue. Also, they're open to Europe, for which a strategic partnership is being prepared, with President von der Leyen announcing a 12 billion euro package for investment in transport, clean energy, and the digital sphere. Of course, we need strategic policies that can oppose the divisions, trends that we are facing. But also we need good examples, just like the one I've just mentioned, because each drop is very important in this ocean that we want, ocean of peace. And the ISIA will continue to give its drop to this ocean of peace that we hope to have very soon. Thank you very much. Thank you, President. Thanks to all the participants for your presence. Ambassador Komekov, who honored us in organizing this event, and we have some refreshments at the exit. And also thank you very much, Deputy Minister Gurbanov. President Morgoni has the pleasure to give you a book.